Well, good morning. We've been talking about some relationship stuff. Last week we just got started, but we talked about men and women, and we went to Genesis and we opened it up and we found out some things that God did before He ever gave Adam Eve. He gave them a place, gave them a purpose, gave them an identity, and gave them some parameters and some rules. And so it's important to understand those things before He ever got Eve. So today we're going to talk about that single is not alone. And all the married people are going, I could have stayed home. No, you couldn't, because we're going to get all in your business this morning. So, whatever you are, if you're single, if you're married, it applies to you today. Say, it applies to me today.
It applies to you today.
If you're married, you're going to learn some things today, and you're going to be like, I'm in trouble. I should have already known this. Now, typically in church, what we have a tendency to do is we make marriage the cornerstone of everything. That's the goal. First comes love, then comes. Now, the day we live in, first comes the baby, then comes marriage, and somewhere in there we find love, maybe. We've got it all out of whack. But as far back as you can go, as little kids and all that, we have it in our mindset. You get married. You have babies. The process. It's Ken and Barbie. There might be different versions of that nowadays, I don't know, but it's Ken and Barbie. And so we have taught ourselves from the earliest of ages that marriage is what it is all about, that is the goal. Now, it is, to a certain degree. But the problem we have with making marriage the goal, so often what we have a tendency to do is all we do is focus on getting to the goal. So when we're single, all we want to do is what? Get married. When we're single, we want a boyfriend. That's all we can think about is, I need a boyfriend. If you're a guy, all you're thinking is I need a girl. That's all we focus on, because you can't get to the end result if you don't have that part. But what if I told you that the single stage is the most important stage? That if you don't do the single stage right, you will mess up the marriage stage. And all the married people said, just saying. I know a lot of single people that all they want to do is be with someone and get married. And I know a lot of married people that all they want to do is be single. Because they didn't do the single part right, and they married something that looked good on the shelf, and they got home and it don't work like they thought it would. And they didn't read the instructions, and it ain't working, and they want to find that receipt and take her back. Or him, just saying, that goes both ways. If you ever bought something, and it's easier, I think, nowadays, because we buy a lot of stuff online. And ain't nothing online look like it. I mean, you get it and it looked like it was going to be this big and it's this big. You know, or it looked one size fits all and it don't fit all. It looks nicer in the pictures. I'm not talking about your spouse, I'm talking about product. You know, the car looks prettier on the lot. All those things. And so it's really important for us to do the single part right. And as we talked about last week, it's really important because it's important for us to understand that God has placed us in this place. So if you're single, God put you there. Just like He put Adam in the garden by himself. You're in this place. not by accident. God knows it. He's not up there going, we just did a baby dedication. They don't come out married. It doesn't work that way. So this is an important part. Whatever stage you're in, it is important for you to understand. If you don't learn the lesson in this stage, you know what happens? You keep going around the mountain till you learn it. And it's harder when you got somebody else in the car with you telling you how to drive and you're trying to learn a lesson.
Amen.
Isn't that right? It is. You got to have a good teacher. We've made singleness look like it is not enough. That if I don't have a man, if I don't have a woman, I don't have enough. But when we studied last week about Adam in the garden, it never said that he made Eve because Adam wasn't enough.
Right.
He said he made a helpmate. And as we discussed last week, all of the women understand why, because if they're married, they know us men need a little help. But more importantly, he said it is not good for man to be all alone. And that word in the Hebrew really is all one. It was not good for man to be all one, to be by himself, to be secluded by himself. Single is okay. Alone is not okay. You see, singleness in the right season is good. Marriage in the right season is good. Marriage in the wrong season is no bueno. That's right. It's bad. And there's a lot we could talk about when it comes to singleness and marriage. What if I told you today that your marriage problems are really a singleness problem?
Yep.
It's not a marriage problem.
Yep.
It's a singleness problem. You see, because as we talked a little bit about what we have a tendency to do is we let Hollywood dictate what marriage should be about. She completes me. Mistake number one. It is. If you're looking for someone to complete you, you're in trouble. Now, what do? We look for somebody to complete us. Instead of going to God to allow Him, now hear me out, please. I'm not saying there's not a place for this. There's the 5 love languages. I'm a believer in it. It works. We have ways we receive love. But if I am always needing my spouse to tell me how good I look, currently today,
Whoa.
but if I'm in an insecure place that I'm looking for someone to fill that, that's great, but that can be manipulated. That can be used wrong. And all of a sudden, I'm looking for something from somebody. I'm pointing over here. My wife's not over here. I'm pointing to my kids. But if I'm trying to get that from her, and I am not secure in who and how God has made me, it's not going to work. I need to know that God made me bald and He knew what He was doing. And one of these days, Joy's going to get in line with that and figure it out. She loves it. But I'm just saying, if I needed her to always be telling me, oh, you look so good bald. Oh, thank you. I mean, there's nothing wrong with compliments. Please understand that. In the grand scheme of things, it's okay. But if I feel like I don't look good because she never tells me, whoo, you look good. If you've been around our house, you know that. I look in the mirror and you did good today, Lord. You did good. And the Lord said, it is good. But singleness is not the same as alone. Isolation, staying away from. Singleness is a season. Marriage is a season. What is the purpose of being single and what is the purpose of being married? If the purpose of being married is to find somebody to make you feel better, to make you feel important, that's exactly what it's going to do right there. It's going to make a nightmare. Because once again, you are depending on somebody else to meet your need of who you are, and it's supposed to be God. You should find this when you're single. Like I said a minute ago, everybody's tired of being single. If you come in the church and you're 25 and you're single, or you go to the family reunion, everybody's like, what's wrong with them? Why haven't they found anybody yet? Isn't that what we ask? What's the matter? Why aren't they? Something wrong with them? I hear she don't brush her teeth. that would be something to work on. We can tell you that. But we do. We start to judge and go, We got this clock ticking on the inside, right? I need to be married. I need to be married. Now, I'm going to give some marriage advice. Now, as I say this is not always. This is not every single time. But when it comes to being single and comes to being married, take your time. I know that is not always the case. Matter of fact, I believe we have a couple in here that married quite quickly. The Harpers? Right? How long did y'all date?
6 months.
6 months.
Now that's 30 days.
3 days?
30 days.
Oh, we're going to have to talk to y'all after. Now, but what we do is, you see, we see those examples. What are you saying, Bethany? 2 years. 2 years? See, that's a little better. There we go. There you go. You probably had good guidance from a youth pastor. To try to get y'all.
9 years.
9 years.
But what happens is say that again?
9 years.
9 years. That might be a little on the long side. But you got it. But what we do is we look at these examples and we go, well, if it worked for them, that's the way to do it. I know people that have come to me and asked for some advice on getting married. And I said, hey, time tells everything about a person. You can fake it for a little while, but the true colors are going to come out the longer you're around somebody. Anybody can sweet talk you for a little season, but time tells who you are.
Yep.
You just ask the spouse. They know you inside and out. But this person that asked you that, and they said, okay, that's a good idea. And then they got married like 15 minutes later. And can't figure out why they have trouble. So often we do not like being single. I'm just going to say it this way. Because you're sick of you. You don't like who you are, so you want somebody else to tell you what you could be. You're not secure in who you are. And you know what happens when you get an insecure person and you put another insecure person in the room with them and they start living together? Some of you are going, yes, I sure do. But it's true. And we don't teach that and we don't talk about that.
Well,
We say, find the person that you love and marry them. And you know what we say that love is? It's that feeling that we get when they walk in the room. No, that feeling you get when they walk in the room is something else that we discussed last week. Because my Bible says that love is not goosebumps. Love is not, Love is patient. That's the first definition of love. Now, how many of you, when your spouse walked in the room, you were like, ooh, patience. Patience. No, you were like, I'm going to get his number. You sit over there, touching a little bit, all that, and rubbing hands. No, no patience. At all. What else is love? Kind. Give me another one. Not jealous.
Long suffering.
That would be my wife. Long suffering. Keeps no record of wrong. None of these sound anything like when we're dating. We ain't thinking about long sufferings, keeping no records of wrongs, being patient in the dating stage.
Always hopes.
always hopes. Yeah, we do some of that. But think about it. Those are not things we talk about when we're dating. Those aren't the things we talk about when we talk about love for somebody. And if I said anything about when you're dating stage, none of those are coming up. You're going to talk, oh, I can't wait to see him. Oh, think about all the things that we've made dating. And then when those things wear off, we're not in love anymore. But love is choices.
Whoa.
It's not feelings.
Right.
If we would teach that, people would understand that feelings come and go.
Yep.
You feel fine right now. I get a hammer and hit your toe. Your feelings change. Your feelings toward me are going to change. Patience. But think about that. I can do things to manipulate you to make your feelings change.
Come on.
But we base love on feelings. And we all know, for all of us that are older, when we're younger, we don't think straight. We just go by what we feel. If it feels right, do it. I feel like I like this person. You see, when people get married, they try to figure out their singleness after they get married. They get married and they want my money and your money, my stuff and your stuff. They want to be single after they get married. But the Bible says the two become one. I'm just going to tell you some marriage advice from the guy standing on the stage today. That's not the way it's supposed to be. It's not yours and yours. It's one. The two become one. Be single when you're single. Be married when you're married. The two become one. Marriage is about submitting and serving. Oh, those are not fun words to say when it comes to being married. Who wants to submit and serve? If both parties come into it knowing that, and they're patient, long-suffering, and they understand what love really is, if they understood that marriage is about submitting and serving your spouse. Not just women serving and submitting to their husbands, but men. The Bible tells us that we're supposed to love our spouses as Christ has loved the church. And he died for it. So women, are you acting like a woman should act, worthy to die for? Men, are we doing the things that a wife would want to submit? These things we learn in our singleness. You don't learn it. It's not on-the-job training. But that's what we do. And that's why so many people make so much money doing marriage counseling, because we don't learn these things when we're single. We don't know who we are, what we want to do in life, where we're going. I'm just following him. And he doesn't have a clue what he's doing with his life. When you don't know who you are, you don't know who you are. And you're looking for somebody, a person, to tell you who and what you should be. Do you know what God's called you to do? Do you know what God's called you to do as a couple? I'll be clear. If you're dating, you're single.
Yep.
If you're engaged, you're single. If you're married, you're married. But understand that. There's one or the other. Now, there's some things in those I understand. We'll talk about those at a later date. But just understand that when you're single, enjoy being single. So often what we do is we marry what we want. Joy wanted skinny, bald, and white. God answers prayers. She got the best one out there. But think about it. Sometimes we make a list. We're going to talk more about lists at a later date too. But we make a list of what we want. I want him to be this and that and this and that, and we write down the list of what we want. We marry what looks good. Nice car, good job, nice hair. But think about it. We usually marry what we like visually. We like how they make us feel. We like what they do. We've turned the marriage into me. What I like. What you do for me. What you bring to the table. Instead of taking the time in your singleness to find out what God needs you to have. What has He designed you for? Who is He designed you for? Now, the mistake in not finding out your singleness is getting married and then getting divorced. And let me explain to what, you all know what divorce is. I'm not going to explain to you what divorce is. But divorce, and I'm going to say this, I haven't experienced this aspect of it, but divorce is worse than death. Because it's a death that doesn't end. When a spouse dies, there's closure in that. But when there's divorce, there isn't. And if you have kids, it's like a resurrecting thing. Every time you swap kids, you drop kids off. You just thought you buried all that and you were done with that, and they walk in the room to drop the kids off, and boom. It's hard. Talk to somebody before you get married about something. Talk to somebody who's been divorced. You might think twice about who you married, because we've made it so easy to get out. We've made it no big deal. We made it just like, you go down and it's getting your car registration. But it's the ripping apart of souls. We shouldn't go into it so lightly. We should plan more and think more in our singleness about it. Because you see, most of us can't understand. Dean and Shirley, how long have you been married?
51.
I like how Shirley looked at him before he answered too. Clarify. 51 and a half years. That's longer than a lot of us have been alive in the room. Probably most of us in the room. It's hard for you to imagine picking somebody. You can when it feels good, looks shiny, and it makes you feel good. 51 years. Appliances have come and gone. Cars have come and gone. Houses have swapped. They're like the Energizer Bunny, though. They keep going. You see, the Bible tells us to love God and love our neighbor as ourselves, right? So before you can ever think about getting married, you better love God. Before you ever think about getting married, your spouse better love God. They better beat you to church. Don't get this, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, a fixer-upper car that I can get him in church and get him right. If he isn't in the altar before you, if you got to drag him to church, beg him to read his Bible, make him pray over the food, I'm just here to tell you, it ain't right. And some of y'all are going, oh my gosh, we are in trouble. Pastor said, you need to be praying. All the men are going, I guess I'm praying over lunch. But it's true. Are there occasions where a woman marries a man that's not interested in God and it's sweet? Yes, like we talked about, there are. But don't roll the dice. Don't take a chance. Singleness. Maximize your singleness. Love God with all your heart. Then what does it say? What's the next part? Love your neighbor as your. So before you can love your neighbor, you have to love what? Yourself. Because it says love your neighbor as you love yourself. You can't love your spouse if you don't love who you are. It's not going to happen. You can fake love them. You can lust them. As long as they make you feel good. And then what happens? When those things stop, I don't love them anymore. And somebody at the office starts to be nice, tell you look good. All of a sudden, you start loving something else. It's like trading your car in every 5 years. Or 4. You cannot love your spouse properly till you love yourself. And if you don't spend time in God's presence, you don't know who you are, you're never going to feel fulfilled, you're not going to love yourself.
Yep.
And it is very important. It is the most important thing. But what do? We find somebody that loves us. We find somebody that makes us feel these things because we don't feel these things, because we don't feel confident in who we are. God really couldn't love me, but this person can. We talked about it last week, Bethany and Robert. How many times have we seen on fire people for God, loving Him? Woo-hoo, I'll do anything. And then she walks in the room. God who? Which leads to the words that we put on the screen last week that I will not repeat today. But then all of a sudden, we've all seen it. Y'all been around long enough. Somebody starts dating somebody and we go, man, they're acting different, aren't they? They changed. They start liking things they didn't like. Isn't it amazing? Because we don't know who we are, we're not confident in who we are, we will change that quickly. You need to get okay with God, or with who God made you, and stop expecting your spouse to tell you. We cannot fill that hole, only God can. Single people. You single in the room, that includes my daughter. Stop looking. Stop looking. We are not at the grocery store checking out watermelons.
Mom. Mom.
Stop. Don't be desperate. What's that other word they use today? Don't be thirsty. I said it from the pulpit. But you know, if you ever been to a young adult group thing and a single, is he single? It's like fresh meat. They walk in the room and they're all like, oh, is he single? Yeah, is he single? He just moved to town. And I'm not saying anything. I've told all of y'all before. I went to youth group because I was the only guy and there was like 13 to 14 girls. And I figured that the best odds I was getting anywhere. And I went to everything we did at church. I didn't marry any of them. It's not as good as I thought those odds were going to be. I wasn't bald back then. But it's true. Stop looking. You see, because if you will get the mindset to run after God and focus on God and only on God and not be looking for a mate and a date and a spouse and all these things, but you are focused running after God. And in the midst of running after God, you know what you're going to find when you're running after God? You look over to your left and there's a man running after God. God will bring you what you need. You don't have to hunt for it. You don't have to look for it. And those of us that are already married are going, man. You see, because what happens is most of the women are running after God and they run past a pew and they see a guy sitting on a bench and they're like, whoa, hey, what are you doing? Oh, I'm just, making it happen. Ain't got a job. Don't go to church. But he looks good and he can sweet talk you. Don't stop. Don't slow down for God. If he don't want to run after God, you got that, Jordan? Matter of fact, I'll tell you which one. You just let me worry about that. I will let you know. I've been praying a long time for that guy. Bless him, Lord, right now wherever he is. Let him be in church. That's where he is. Choose wisely. You should get one choice. It's more than feelings. We make, in singleness, we act like finding a spouse is solely on feelings. But it says that God did what to Adam when he was in the garden? He brought all the animals by, didn't he? And none of them, he said, suited Adam. till Eve showed up. Adam picked Eve. He said, I like this one. So sometimes picking a spouse is a little more here and a little less here.
Well,
You see, because just like in our relationship with God, our love grows. Well, I don't know how much I love him. I don't know if I love him that much. Are they the right one? Single people. It's okay to be single. Nothing wrong with it. You can be single to the day you die. It's not unbiblical. Jesus was single. And he did more than anybody. And now some of y'all would say yes, but Jesus was the Son of God. But Daniel wasn't. Paul. Whole bunch of disciples. Except Peter. And he denied Christ. See, all right, that got him? Single is okay. Maximize your single state. Do the right things when you're single. Don't try to get to the next stage without finishing everything. We talk about instructions. You're putting together a Lego thing. You can't skip ahead and do the next step. You've got to do the right steps. All right, I'm going to fly through this. It's important to be single. It's more important to be single than married. Because it is the foundation for a successful marriage. Like I said, the problem we have is a single problem. Pay attention to who you're dating. Look with your eyes, not your heart, not how it makes you feel. Think.
well,
Most people that you talk to that are divorced, and you ask them, did you see any of this before? When we really get honest, a lot of times we've seen it. We just overlook it.
Yep.
Because we love them. I love cake. Doesn't mean I should eat it all the time. Right, Ben? Ben's like, no. Does not mean that. I love it. Don't date just to date. If you're single, be single. Date leads to something.
Yeah.
If not, well, let me just put it this way. You know, there's only one difference between somebody that's dating and friends. Yeah. We all know we all get real quiet in here, like all of a sudden we got real churchy here all of a sudden. But the biggest difference between somebody that's dating and just friends is, that stuff. And then that clouds your judgment. And it clouds the way you think. Because you're not thinking clearly, because when they're holding your hand, you're thinking about them.
Well,
Singleness is okay. Don't date because you're alone. Find out who you are. Be content in that. Let God do the rest. Your marriage will only be as good as you are in your single state. That's it. Because when you get married, it's a whole lot of, careful, y'all all thinking what word to fill in that blank. It's a lot of work. Because now you're not just responsible for yourself, you're responsible for another party. And then you throw a kid, 2 kids, 3 kids. Some of y'all got 4 kids. I don't know what y'all was thinking. But you add all that in there, and it makes it a whole lot more. It's great. The rewards are wonderful. But don't try to figure out who you are after you start having kids and all this stuff in there. Because then what happens when you got an insecure mom? You're expecting things from your kids now that your husband's not giving you. And it makes the situation even more toxic.
Mom.
We had a lady at another church that we went to that was a youth sponsor. And she was needy because she was not secure in her singleness. And so she was always trying to take from kids to make her feel important. It is important for you to build your singleness. You got to know who you are. Don't change because you got married. Time shows who you are. You ain't going to hide from your spouse.
Mom.
They know the real you, don't they? And all the wives go, Amen. Amen. You ain't hiding. Your spouse can tell when you come in, and they can read you like a book. Good book or bad book. Marriage exposes who you are.
Yep.
It magnifies you. If you are selfish going in, it is going to magnify it like crazy. You put two selfish people in the same marriage together, and you know what that's called? A hot mess. Hot mess. It magnifies who you are. If you are a giver, if you are caring, if those are the things, if you are secure in who you are and who God has made you, it is going to magnify and make it better. It's tough. I just want to, it'll be all better when we get married. It does not improve your singleness. If you do not know who you are, getting married is not going to make it any clearer. It's going to make it harder. Because all of a sudden they're going to say, well, if you don't know who you are, let me tell you who you are. I need dinner. And all of a sudden you're going to figure out who you are real quick. In singleness, read your Bible.
Mom.
You will never have more time than you do when you're single. Ask the folks with babies. You ain't getting any more time. How many of y'all, you remember them up all-nighters? You're looking forward to it. It's coming, isn't it? You're like, man. How good did Hadassah sleep last night?
She slept for like
14 hours. She came and played at the Tarver house, and we wore that girl. We made sure. I told them when they left, I said, I can promise you somebody's sleeping good tonight, because I'm tired. You don't realize that grandparents, that's why you like, I'm learning why grandparents like being grandparents, because they can send the kids home. They don't have to stay up and do all that night. They get the fun part. And then it's like, all right, they're going to be up all night. Yep, with you. I remember Joy telling me once, she said, you know, working with the kids, she was prepared for that. She worked in the nursery. But the one thing she was not prepared for was the up like every hour thing. And I know some of us, when you were in your, nobody in here, in your single days, and you'd stay out all night long praying. But staying out all night long and then get up and go to work the next day. But you have a baby and do that, it is a different kind of tired. You're just like, oh my God, I'm tired. Read your Bible. Work on who God's made you to be. Enjoy you. Enjoy being single. Be the best you that there is. Don't jump into it. It's hard work. If you run after God and you stay focused on Him, He will bring you what you need. Let's ask this question. Who do you trust more to pick your spouse? You or God? I give you a clue what the answer should be. Who do you trust more to pick your spouse? You or mom and dad? Mom and dad. No. But think about that. Sometimes what happens? People say, they're not right for you. Oh, but I love them. Yeah, but they're not right for you. Because we can see from the outside some things you can't see when you're inside because you're what? In love. And you can't see how they really treat you or how they're changing you or the things that are shifting. But somebody from the outside can see trouble. Things you start changing. A good egg and a bad egg in the same pan make a bad omelet. No matter how good the good egg is.
Come on.
Mama and daddies don't let that bad egg in. Don't. Singleness. Find out who you are. You know, nowadays, if you're going to buy something online, they have a thing called, you can read the review. And they tell you, oh, I liked it, but the cord was too short. I did this and I didn't like that. Or, it was, you know, now with the Airbnbs, when we do, Joy does all that. She reads all the reviews to what people like. And it's, one, I can't remember, that one that was really, whatever they complained about was something that was going to be obvious. I can't remember. Do you remember what it was? I don't know. Something like, you know, the sirens were too loud. It was next to the fire station. What do you expect? But read the reviews, right? You're going to buy something, you read the reviews on it. You find out what other people know. So when it comes to marriage, don't think that we know it all, especially when you're young. Just because mom and dad did it and survived, you know what that means? Nothing.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Don't do it their way just because it worked for them.
Come on.
You know what? I used to ride, by God, I used to ride around in a truck. We didn't wear seatbelts and I survived. Exactly. Oh, let's all do it then. That makes sense. But we do that. Well, mom and dad used to. That's how they did it. They threw pans at each other and they survived 51 years. It's good for mom and dad. It's going to work for us. Not if she throws pans back. Or knives. But we do that. Some of us. Once again, it is okay to be single. Everybody say it is okay to be single. But it is not okay to be alone. You can be single, have friends, have family, have community. Alone means all in one. Singleness means separate, original, distinctive, special, whole, complete, one with ourself. Now, who wants to be single? You know what marriage is? I'm not even going to read that definition. Y'all know what that is. No. But if you don't go into the marriage being single and being whole, it will ruin the rest of your life. It will not be what God has intended for it to be. The more single you are, the better your marriage will be. Dating, well, let's just put it this way. What the devil can't destroy, he will distract.
Come on.
He might not be able to destroy you, but God knows he can distract you with a girl or a boy, marriage. He didn't have to have you be on fire for God. He just needs you to not get along with your spouse. You know what that causes? Living with somebody you don't like. You know what that means? I ain't going to say it. But maximize your singleness. Go all in when you're single. I remember talking once to Brett Johnson, Teresa and Kirsten's one son and brother. We were talking about things. He'd gone to India and with Pastor Lynn at the time, and we were just doing things, and he was talking about trying to do and maximize the things he could do being single, because he didn't have a wife and kids. And we were talking back and forth about how he could just go and just do whatever it was, he could do it. He was learning and finding out things about who he was. And he said, you remember, but there was a price that he was giving for that. He didn't have a wife and kids at that time. Now he does. But he maximized his singleness. Now those of you that are married, it's too late because you can't go back and do it. But just understand, if you're single, how long do you pray? You don't have time? You'll never have time.
Come on.
You got to learn to love God. You got to learn to find a purpose. Single people, be choosy. When you understand who you are and who God has made you, don't settle for less than the best. Don't settle for less than what God has for you. Don't get desperate. You'd rather spend 51 years with something that looks good? Or would you rather spend 51 years with the right choice? In your singleness, you need to know who you are. I dated somebody for a very long time, and I had no clue what I wanted to do in my life. I was like a rubber ball bounced around in a room. Ding! If it looked good, squirrel! I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Oh, this sounds good. Hey, I'm going to start my own. Lost as a goose. The person I was dating was not lost as a goose. They had purpose and a plan, going to school, knew what they were going to be. You know who I did not marry? That person. You know one of the reasons I believe today? I believe she knew he don't know where he going. I ain't hooking up to that train. It's parked in the parking lot. What are we doing? What are you doing in your singleness? Know your value. Be choosy. When you marry, you connect. Good and bad. Whatever bad things in their life they bring in, you link up to it. So all those things that you overlook, they come. So don't overlook them. Put it back on the shelf. What's that old commercial? Squeezing the Charmin. You might need in your dating singleness, in your pre-dating, watch. Oh, you know what? He talks like this. Put it back on the shelf. I'll wait for something else. But you see, once again, we get desperate because we don't know who we are in our singleness. We have no identity. We're not secure in who we are. We look around and everybody's getting married. We look around and everybody has this, and they have a house, and they have all these things, and I'm single, and come on, God, and God's saying, wait, because I have the right thing for you, but I just need you to wait. I need you to work on your identity. I need you to understand who you are, because this perfect man that I've set aside for you is over here. And you're not going to get there if you don't continue to do the right things in your singleness. Don't get in a hurry. The more intimate you are with a person, the harder it is to say no. It clouds the vision. And all the married people say, amen. And it's just true. Because we love them. We feel this way. This person makes me feel. Bow your heads and close your eyes. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this morning. We thank you for the opportunity to come in, to see what your word says, to get wisdom from you. No matter what stage we're in, if we're single, dating, engaged, married, Lord, that we would understand the importance of the moment of where you have placed us. And if we are single, you have placed us in this stage for a reason, and we should be glad in it. Lord, if we are married, I pray that as the spouses in here, that they would become more secure in who they are, that they would lean on you for direction and guidance and learning who you've made them to be, that they might be the best spouse possible. That they will learn to love, serve, be patient, long-suffering. And most of all, Lord, I just pray that you guide us. Give us wisdom. Everything in your hands is fixable. Fix our hearts. Fix our marriages. Fix our singleness. In Jesus' mighty name. Amen. Before you're dismissed, remember the Bible that says that he who finds a wife finds a
good thing.
Yeah, that's right, women. They don't say nothing the other way. Choose wisely, but it does say for us men, he who finds a wife finds a good thing, unless you pick an insecure wife. And then it's like that lady in the Proverbs that lives on the corner of the house. Oh yeah, we'll talk about that later today. I want to get out of here live. You guys are dismissed. Bring somebody next week. We're going to talk about our list. You are dismissed.